Good evening. You are flying with the Pod Squadron podcast. All wings report in. This is Andy, Pod Job standing by.
This is Tracy, Pod Tracer, standing by with a nose itch all of a sudden.
And this is Rod Pod. I still don't know what I want to call myself, but yeah.
Working
Rod the Podfather.
Yeah.
Podfather. Actually, that's pretty good.
I am sitting in and jumping in because Lexi's having some internet issues because she
Storms.
apparently
Stupid
lives
internet.
Apparently lives on Hoth, and she's having some
Whoops, I lost my thought. Hey, all ships to... We're professionals. All ships to attack formation. Mission objectives to talk about Star Wars and movies, streaming, animation, books, themed experiences, and your art and inspiration from a galaxy far, far away. Today, well, today is Happy Revenge of the 5th. Yesterday was May the 4th, so happy Star Wars days. And we are celebrating by jumping into Andor. God, I can't talk today. Andor season 2.
Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather.
Episode 4 through 6, the second arc of Andor. Very exciting stuff. And for all of you out there, all comm channels are open. Follow us on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram. Find us on Twitch, YouTube. Like and subscribe and hit the bell icon so you will know when we have new content. But first, I'll be your squad leader for today. I'm Andy Lowe, a.k.a. the Chinese pirate, director, storyteller, puppeteer, performer, and fight choreographer. On my wing is Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy, Hot Nerd Girl. I disagree that it's Revenge of the 5th. I thought we established it was May the 4th be with you, then Cinco de Mayo, then Revenge of the 6th, because you drink on Cinco de Mayo. And so
And
it's
then
Revenge of the Sixth.
Fine.
Yes.
Okay. That works. That makes sense.
Yeah, that
So
was,
we're
yeah.
happy Cinco de Mayo to all the American Mexicans because it's not really celebrated in Mexico.
That is true.
Oh, and happy
Good
birthday,
point.
Paul. Paul's birthday was on Saturday. Happy
Hey,
birthday.
happy
Paul.
birthday, Paul.
And on my other wing today is Rodney.
Hey, everybody. Rodney, co-founder of the Geekish Network and producer for Pod Squadron. And I'm so happy to be here after, just loving the fact that we get to talk about really great fucking Star Wars. Yeah.
Great
And of
TV.
course,
Not even
we
great
are.
Star Wars,
Yeah.
TV.
Great. Exactly.
Okay. So, we're just one squad in this fleet. We're here part of the Geekish Network. Find us on YouTube and on Facebook. XOS to attack position. Let's jump in. Really quickly, first things first, have either of you guys had any time to check out Tales from the Underworld?
So I
No.
watched, it's funny because Fortnite is doing a big Star Wars collaboration for May the 4th. And one of the things they had in the game starting on Friday was you can watch the first 2 episodes of Tales of the Jedi
Oh, cool.
inside Fortnite. And so I was curious. I jumped in, and then yes, it was a lobby filled with a bunch of screaming kids. So then the first thing I had to do was like mute them. So I watched maybe the first like minute or 2 just to see what it was like. And what it does, it brought up like a screen with you're like in a like cinema, and you sit down, and then there's a screen like floating. And I started watching it, and I was like, I don't want to watch it this way. So then I jumped out because it was like it's very limited. It was like just screen within the screen that you're watching.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah. So I was just like, nah, I'll watch it when I. And plus,
That is so interesting.
But it
like,
was
the
really
things there.
interesting. Yeah, it was really interesting because it was like 2 days early, right? Because I think they dropped them on Sunday or I forget
yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, and so it was like, I think that was one of the things, and then who knows? We'll see.
I have only watched.
My cat just
part
disrupted
of
my.
the. I've only watched the like part of the first arc. That's the arc with Ventress. It's interesting stuff. They finally give us an explanation for why she's alive. They do not overwrite anything with the Quinlan Voss in the path. In fact, they kind of write around it. It's a bit of a cheat, but hey, Night Sister magic. Why not?
Yeah.
Definitely check that out. The second arc, of course, is on Cad Bane. Very excited to jump into that because I do enjoy that character. But that's about it. Tell us what you think, and we'll talk about it another day. Right now, we're going to get into Andor, the second arc. This is episodes 4 through 6. We're going to jump right in. We're not even, you've had a week, so there will be spoilers. So before we get into details,
The culprit.
there's a cat. Yes.
It has such a
The guilty one.
Stop disconnecting my camera.
Guilty look on his face.
How'd you guys enjoy this week's arc?
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I will have to give it a little bit of a caveat in that I had to rewatch it, not because I just feel like it's so rich. And there's so many things you miss that you have to rewatch. I've rewatched both arcs, twice. And the first time I watched, my week, my whole schedule is crazy. So I just been getting really weird sleep stuff. So there were times I was sort of dozing off during the first watch, not because of the material, just because of my own physical limitations at the time. And then like rewatching it today, man, I just loved it. It's just like you pick up more of the sort of the nuances, the meanings, the imagery, the themes, like the visual clues, all those things. So I enjoyed it.
That and also keeping things so personal. Like that was something I really noticed with this. And not that the first arc wasn't personal, but I mean, you really, I mean, if that first arc was about, what did I say that first arc was about? It was, is it worth it? Um, this one is like, this is about the pressure cooker, right? This is about kind of losing track. Every character is kind of dealing with that in some kind of level, and it's yeah, it's the kind of, what are the personal stakes for everyone. How about you, Tracy?
I also had to watch it twice, mostly because the first time I watched them was I was at a funeral this weekend,
Oh,
and we watched them with Ian's mom, who's never seen any of them before and had a million questions. And Ian and I kept looking at each other and going, what do you know what's happening? Do you know something? And then I watched him again and I was like, oh my God, this makes so much more sense the second time. I don't know, my brain was out there for different reasons, but
Yeah.
yeah. But after watching it the second time, oh, it's just getting so good. And I'm so like, we're so close. We're only like 2 years away from Rogue One. And I'm just like, you see these little things here and there that you're just like, oh, you know what happens? And you're, ah.
yeah, I think just in terms of rewatching, like I think like when they got to Saw's big moment, I immediately rewatched just that scene like two more times just because I was like, oh, okay, wait, I got to see this again. Um, um,
All I could think about the first time was Saw, shut the fuck up so Willman doesn't mess this up. You can't concentrate with your constant yakking. And I was so focused on stressing out about Willman messing up because of Saw just yapping away
Yeah,
behind him
yeah.
that when he took off his mask and started like hyperventilating and
Huffing.
stuff, I was like, yeah, I was like, what is happening right now? This makes no, why is he doing this? Hi, Ian. It's like, what are you doing?
I mean, I
I forgot we had a
immediately
show.
perked up when he called the Rido his sister. I was like, what? It's because I'm like, if that's referencing Stila, and they're like, no, it's not referencing Stila. You just crazy. You the cray cray man.
You know, there was,
Too much
some
rocket fuel, too much huffing.
there was some interesting discussion. I was reading about that online too, where they were saying that like
Mm,
the Rido basically became his sister.
yeah.
You know, in that sense that like the replacement of that or
Mhm.
his sister. And so,
But
but
it
then
reminds him of her, right? Somehow,
Well,
because they were together
it's.
the first time
I mean,
that
the
they
other thing
were
is,
itching and stuff.
I mean, the other thing too is it's a slight echo, a bit of a rhyme to what's happening with Bix, right? Who's kind of self-medicating as she's dealing with her trauma. But everything in that monologue is, it's this idea of, you know, you're not with Luthen, you're not gonna live out some like ridiculous, you're not gonna live to see the New Republic. You know, we're here, we're now, we're fighting, and we're gonna be cannon fodder. And it's interesting that with this whole arc, and every single character is dealing with some kind of anxiety, some level of the pressure cooker as like they lose control. And the only calm one in this whole arc is Saw, who's like, yeah, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna fucking
yeah,
die.
like
I've
everybody,
accepted my
yeah,
place.
the stakes are getting higher, obviously. Things are being set in motion and they are all feeling, you're right, they're all feeling the pressure. Like there was a scene with Luthen and Clea where
Yeah,
like
Luthen
she
losing it too.
Luthen was losing it. Clea was just basically like, "Hey, are you done?" Like, and she's like, she's trying to be very practical, and and like, "Hey, and then um, he's like, I told you so. I told you so. I told you this is a stupid idea," and he's like, "No, we need to be practical. Like, it is what it is. This is the problem. We need to fix it." And then and it kind of brings me back because I think the theme of this, Andy, could be displayed in that and I saw it today and I missed it on the first
Hmm.
viewing because it was so quick, but then somebody posted it on one of the Facebook groups that we're in. There's that image of when Cinta and
Val?
Val meet in that cafe, and they're shot from outside the window, and the window is this oval shape, and it's basically a yin and yang symbol. He's
Mm.
sitting down, Cinta's standing up, so it forms, and it's just so brief. And it posted it, and so then I look at that, and I started thinking back upon that when I was rewatching it, and it's like the yin and yang of this whole thing, right? So it's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
The Luthen and Clea, yin
Clea.
and yang, right? It's like Krennic in Mon Mothma, right? And
Yeah.
then there's the
Lessian and Bix, Saw and Willman.
Saw and Willman, right? And then Gorman itself is a yin and yang, right? Because one of the things I wrote down on my note was that it's interesting that basically Luthen and the Empire want the same thing for Gorman.
Yeah, that is such a great point of irony, right?
Like they literally want the same thing for Gorman, like, but for different reasons. So it's the yin and yang of it, right? It's like,
well, and that and again, to come back to Saw's things, like they are going to be cannon fodder.
Yeah.
Right. They will serve their purpose, but you know, it is absolutely at their expense, no matter the way you look at it. Right.
And he even says it a lot in his speech or his monologue, his yapping, while, and I think, and it was true too, because I was thinking I thought the same thing, Tracy. I was like, yo, are you trying to make him fuck up? Like, like, and then, but yeah, it's true. It's like he's doing this monologue about like, and it goes back into those themes of things that he's like, yeah, I have to be crazy to be a revolutionary, right? I have to give into this to fight this rebellion. And so again, it's the yin and yang of it. It's like the two sides of everything, but it's like one whole. It is like, yo, yes, I have to be this way. And then obviously the most, the other thing, revelation is like, now we know what Saw's always smoking on, right? In the mask. Right?
I mean, that's the question.
He has lung damage. No.
Yeah, right.
He has lung damage from huffing it for too long. He's asthmatic now.
Yeah.
It's also interesting just like to think about like all of this, like this arc is really about Willman, who doesn't really say a whole lot in this whole episode, but his presence is felt, and you see this arc play out for him too, right? He was kind of one of the first characters to get radicalized, throwing the bomb. And and so I mean that kind of sets him on this course, right? And it's like, yeah, I mean, absolutely, he's gonna get radicalized by Saw, and it's also the just knowing that this is also coming off of, this is a year since he lost his second father figure, right? His father was killed by the Empire. His second father figure was Brasso, who died needlessly in a field somewhere. He lost his girlfriend, because of the Empire. He lost this idyllic life, out amongst the fields in this farm. And now he's here in the dirt with Saw.
The real savage rebels.
Yeah.
Right? Like yeah, I mean, just that one wide shot.
Ones who actually blow up Teslas.
Yeah. Like the ruthless, super savage.
Instead of just standing on a freeway overpass, they actually blow up the Teslas.
And there was one thing is like, I really want to know what that white furred rebel, what his story or hers, I don't know, story is. It's like,
I feel like we've seen him before. I feel like
we have
in season 1, I think, but
he was in Rogue One. He was in Rogue One.
He is in Rogue One.
I actually wrote down, Maraf is his name.
Okay. I'm gonna look up more of it. But I was just like, wow, this is so intriguing. He just stands out. He just literally stands out.
I mean, that, and also just how Saw handles that whole situation, right? Presumably he's clocking this guy as an Imperial informant the whole time, and just does this as a test just to fuck with everybody, right?
No, I think he actually did trust Puthi, which name cracks me up because it makes you think of Putha. But I think he actually did trust him. Um, I don't think he would have let him anywhere near the machine if he hadn't. I think that he realized that certain targets were being revealed, and that's why he asked Putti, like when Putti asked him, so, where's the next target? That way you see Saw's face change very drastically. And this is where Forrest Whitaker is
Mm.
such a good actor because he went from like being like, hi, my buddy, to being like, bullshit, and
Yeah,
and then he gave him the false coordinates, right?
yeah.
Well, I think yeah, I think he was baiting it. That right, he was baiting. I think that was the final test of him, like finding out, like okay, he really is like a spy. So what you
I
gonna
think
do
he I
is
think he knew he had a spy, but he didn't know who it was.
yeah,
I don't think he thought it was him
mm,
until he asked what the next
yeah.
location was.
That basically tipped his hand and said, okay, this is the spy, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I also speaking of that with Will, it was really interesting because and I thought really cool where they were saying he was saying like yeah he's not just a good engineer, he's probably a great engineer,
Yeah.
and saw the value in that. And I think that's another, it's almost like, and then again that's almost a parallel of like Luthen and Cassian, where Cassian is sort of this he sees Cassian as this potential like really great asset, so he goes out of his way to recruit him. He doesn't care about the stolen device. Like he's really there to recruit Cassian. And so this is
I
something
think he wants
similar.
Cassian to take over for him when he dies.
Yeah. And then so Saw sees in Will, the same thing. He sees like a really great asset that he wants to have on his team. So he's done this whole thing, to recruit him.
So let's jump to Luthen here because I'm still debating this myself. So do you think Luthen tipped off Cassian and Bix about Dr. Gorst?
Yes.
Or you think that was like
Yes.
his gift to Bix?
Because if you remember, the last interaction that when he goes to the store, when he's mad about him interfering with Bix, and Cassian goes to the storefront and he says, "Hey, Bix," and then Luthien says to Cassian, he says like, "Hey, Bix is becoming a problem, and that's why I was there. I'm just trying to, and then Cassian says to him, "Well, you wanted me, you helped me fix this."
Yeah.
So that was like one of the last things he said to him, and then he leaves. And so the next scene we see with Cassian is okay, boom, they get the revenge on Dr. Gorge, which is like, it's such a cathartic moment. I don't know about you guys.
Oh yeah, totally.
Just like the whole thing was like so
They
cathartic.
even
like,
do the Hollywood walk away from the explosion thing.
Yeah. And then just like her walking, and it was in, I know
she's back in her boots, she's got her walking boots.
And I know it was in the trailer, but like her walking, and then the guy's like, and she just lifts up and shoots the guy.
Yeah.
It's just like so cool and badass. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. So I that leads me to believe that he is the one that tipped him off, because also when Lonnie finds out that information, right? So just like connect the dots. It's like, yeah, that's how that happened.
It's also a learning experience for Luthen too, because even though he refuses to have any attachments and he feels like in order to fulfill this goal, he has to always be suffering, he's realizing that other people don't necessarily feel that way, and they have to have like moments of peace and joy in their lives in order to continue this fight. Otherwise, what are they fighting for? If they don't have somebody that they care about, what are they fighting for?
And that's an interesting thing too, because I feel like this whole arc very much is a counterpoint to the Maya Pei subplot from the last arc, right? It's this thing of when you can trust no one. He's running this rebellion from the shadows where you can't say who you're working for, you can't name any names, no one trusts anyone. but you have to trust someone, right? And it is that very Star Wars, fight for what you love, don't destroy what you hate thing, right?
Oh, and was it before or after Andor's conversation where Luthen lets Val and Cinta be on together?
Oh, that's a good point. I think you're right. I
Because
think
I
that's
almost
after. Yeah.
because I feel like his conversation with Andor was what made him say
Yeah,
okay to Vel and Cinta working
that was in
together.
episode 2, right? Yes, because the whole episode 3 they're at the party.
I think it was in episode 3 because that was when Cinta said she had the accident, which had to be when she was killing Take Home, right? Like, did she
Well,
crash the plane and that was the accident or something?
I mean we don't know. They don't go into detail, but I mean I'm saying that the confrontation with Luthen had to have been in at the end of episode 2 because like Cinta's in the episode
Well,
from the very top.
the conversation, the one I was talking about earlier, the first conversation that they had in the reunion in the cafe, Val says to her, said like, I only accepted this if
Right.
my stipulation was that Luthen would let you come. So I think it was a combination of that. It was probably a combination of that because
Yeah.
I think that is a great point that you make about like he's realizing, because I mean that's what essentially what Cassian is saying. He literally says is like, hey, we're human, like I care for Bix. It's like, these are the things like and it's like also showing like what are we really fighting for,
Yeah.
right? So I
Plus,
think,
before that, he would have just said the mission comes first,
yeah, and it's like, well,
and he wouldn't have cared.
and then I think that was really great, and this brings up a really good point though. Is like, Andy, you brought that up earlier too about like, okay, well, they're making it more personal because it's true. It's like, what do people fight for in
Yeah.
rebellions, right? Yeah, you obviously
Or what
fight
grounds
for,
you, right?
yeah, what grounds you. Obviously, yes, you fight for freedom, you fight against oppression, you fight for this, but a lot of it is because it stems from a very personal place because it is hurting the people that you love. It is, in Will's case, his dad gets killed. In Cassian's place,
Well,
it's
in
like,
Saw's case, his dead sister who becomes gas.
yeah, and he was sounded like he was essentially a slave, right? And he was
Well, I mean
fighting to get
that's right out of
rage.
Clone Wars, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because that's the whole thing of, if you recall, his whole arc in Clone Wars was he and his sisters were slave class in Andor on Onderon, get free, and his sister Stela basically starts their rebel cell. She's like the real leader, and he's just kind of a hothead. She dies, and he ends up taking on that mantle. But he's really just a
Kind of
fighter, so he just
overcompensating.
never stops fighting. Really,
What a
Yeah.
great character, man.
I know. Gosh,
Seriously.
and Forrest Whitaker, good God, man. I mean,
Dude, they're all hitting home runs, man. Like, it is just like they're giving.
Great
Oh,
cast.
man, it is. I was listening to Tony Gilroy on the Watch podcast, and he was talking about it, and he was saying like, yeah, these he equated these monologues to like a guitar riff, right? Like a guitar, is just going on a riff, and I'm just like, that's a great analogy because he's like, yeah, but he's like, yeah, a lot of people can do that. It's like, it's all the other crafting, all the other sort of subtle story block moments that get to that riff that are like really hard to do, And so, again, another reason why I think it really, really benefits from a second or third rewatch, because you do see these, these images, these meetings, these things you might have missed, or these lines that just like have even more meaning. So like, again, I want to and I'll we can move on to the next, but there's one shot of like, when Cassian gets his disguise and his cover, and he's listening to it.
Varian Sky.
Right? Yeah. It's such a great name, right? Such a great name. And he's walking.
Looked like he was imitating Luthen, by the way.
Yeah,
It was like he was doing an impression
really,
of Luthen.
Yeah, it really did.
yeah, as Harold did,
Yeah. And then he's walking, right? And he's listening to his cover story, the history, all that stuff.
Very Ethan Hunt.
Yeah. And he's walking on this pathway, and there's this glass wall right next to him. And you see his shadow of his reflection there, but also parallel to him. And it's just like
Yeah.
he's getting this cover about this fake individual, and there's this like, shadow of himself, walking alongside of him. And I was like, oh, no.
The same when he's talking to
they
Enza
do
in the restaurant, because when they close up on her, she looks like she's talking to him on the glass, and it's like it's not really Cassian, right? Like there's always this shadow, and when
Yeah.
he's schooling her, because they obviously really suck at espionage, right?
Yeah.
They're way too wholesome. Yeah.
The French in space.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
very French. Okay, but before we get into the space French though, I want to talk a little more, because we were kind of talking about Luthen. I want to get into Clea and a little bit of Lonnie too, because there's some really interesting things that happen there. First, Clea is fucking amazing. She is like always kind of like the Rock and just hardcore. Um um Also, I just love like the visual language of kind of this old World War II switchboard listening station that she has, right? But we get that whole bit about her finding out that Skulldin is about to like search all of the artifacts that they sold to him to see if they're
But
they're
the one
fakes.
artifact that the fake is not from Luthen, though.
Oh, that's not from Luthen?
No,
No, it's some
the
different
one
dealer.
that turned out to be the one that turned out to be a fake is not the one from Luthen. His like museum
Oh,
person
right. Yes. Yeah.
told Clea, like, don't worry, it has nothing to do with Luthen.
And
That's right,
he makes it a point to say that the dealer is dead. He wishes he wasn't dead because he would have killed him or something like that.
Yeah.
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 Skulldin says that when she's listening in on the first time. He's saying that. Again, that's another story block that they did that was great, because it enabled them, and I know we're jumping way forward, but it enabled them to get Krennic and Mon Mothma in the same room.
Yeah, that
Right.
that whole bit, and also getting to see Lonnie in scenes with
Mhm.
characters that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
watching him flip the fuck out as she's like, just flirt with me,
Yeah.
stay
Yeah.
focused, don't move.
I'm convinced Clea is a sociopath.
Yeah,
I really think she is,
yeah, totally.
and they're lucky she's on their side.
Yeah.
I know, right? Yeah, so many cool moments with her, so many cool moments with that. The whole thing, like the bit with her twisting on the, trying to pull the listening device free, presumably she dripped some blood, but she's smart enough to cover it up somehow or something like that.
That's where those big sleeves come in handy.
Right. She's also hiding some simple green in there to scrub all bio.
Yeah.
The Luthen, and so the Luthen of it all, it's interesting because, you see him unraveling, right?
And it's
bit.
hers to get your shit together. Are you done?
Yeah.
Get your shit together.
And he's like, he's getting more and more paranoid. He visits Bix to checking on her, and he sees that she's like basically doping herself to get rid of her, her nightmares.
Well, also, it was this arc, right, where he visits Lonnie, or was that last arc?
No, they do.
No,
They
that
do
was
meet
first
up.
season.
Yeah.
But they
Huh?
no.
No.
They meet up. They meet up.
He meets up and he's like, "Where the hell have you been? It's been 3 months. I need
yeah,
more."
yeah.
Going down the massive elevator shaft and then meeting down, the place where he did this monologue. They meet up and he says, "Hey, and he's like, well, I didn't have anything, but I do have something now." And that's where he confirms that Deidre is working on the Gorman project, whatever it is.
Right.
He's like,
like, what the hell? Why are they?
I've deduced that there's no other way that it's just a front that she was being sidelined because of the Ferrix incident. No, she's really working on the Gorman thing for whatever reason, And so that's what he gives.
I do remember that.
And then, but again, going back to really great lines that tell a lot. He says he says something like, we have to be careful. He's like, what about being careful? He's like, or something like along. I'm totally paraphrasing, but he's saying those days are over.
Right.
Like that's essentially saying, which we see throughout the whole arc, that like the stakes are getting higher. You
Well,
know,
and
the
and
things
and
are the protocols, all the things that we were doing, trying to be safe or just to observe. It's like we they have to like up their game, or just the pressure and the stakes are higher. So
yeah.
there's obviously something afoot on Gorman, and that's one of the real quick. And one of the other things I wanted to talk about was like, it was so funny because like, I made the note. It's like he's talking to Cyril's talking to his mom, Edie. He doesn't even call her mom now. He just calls her Edie, right? And then and he says, "You've been watching too much Imperial News."
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, it's exactly
Wink, wink.
Yeah, it's the red pilling of the freaking Empire, right?
Yeah.
It's like, in which is true. It's like they say it throughout this arc too, and like they are laying the groundwork for Gorman to be this enemy of the Empire and they're starting first with the propaganda. The propaganda, and you're seeing it within this vulnerable population that watches, this Imperial News Network.
Yeah.
Very similar to what we're going through. And then you also see it in Mon Mothma's dealings with like her trying to gather votes to stop the PORD Act, which I'm not even sure what it was for, but it was becoming
it's Gorman specific.
It's becoming like a third rail of this Empire galactic politics system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where
even the ambassador from Gorman won't.
Yeah, and he's like, yo, I can't. Yeah, and it's become this like anthem. It's like forbidden almost, right? Where it's like
they're all afraid of retribution ultimately, right? I mean, and so they're just like trying to make good. There's before, okay, I want to get to Mon Mothma, but I still want to talk about Lonnie really quick too, because there is still that great scene where we see all of the ISB. Partagas is like, well, give me an answer, and everyone's just kind of quiet. No one wants to admit to their flaws, and it's and then ultimately it's Lonnie who basically goes, it's because we're incarcerating too many people. We can't keep up, and it kind of shows the pressure cooker is on with the Empire as well. And and he gets the pat on the shoulder. He endears himself with Partagas for actually admitting because we're doing something wrong. And that also kind of shows.
Speaking of Partagas, calibrate your enthusiasm is my new motto.
So good. Yeah.
I'm just going to say that anytime anybody gets too excited, I'm going to say, calibrate your enthusiasm, please. Thank you.
Man, he's doing, the actor playing Partagas, like, when he's giving his orders and you see him just have this little hand twitch thing. I mean, and that's just a choice, right? That's just like an actor choice of going, this character has this hand twitch when he's irritated or when he's, whatever. I'm going to channel it into this. And it's like, it's such a small thing. But
and I noted that as well, Andy, when Lonnie makes that suggestion, and he could tell that he's like, he took it and agreed with it. He put his hand on the corner of his chair. And it was very, very like it was in frame. It's like very deliberate and really, and he put his hand on the tip of the corner of the chair. It wasn't even on his like shoulder. It was just like on the corner of the chair. And it was like, okay, Lonnie got her, that's his approval, right?
Yeah.
And he impressed him, right? And but yeah, and
that's
also,
how you know that with Dedra and Cyril. Dedra knows how he is, but Cyril doesn't. So when he compliments Cyril, she knows that that's just him playing into the game. Whereas Cyril's like, this is the greatest day of my life.
She just like, it was so funny too, because like the way she just like hesitates, and like you can even see her like I think she swallowed a few times and said, well, I'm glad to see you happy. you know, like, and I was just like, oh my god, every scene with those two, there's just like this subtle, so
Icky.
icky,
Just
but like
icky.
amusing, and it's just so they're funny, like, oh
I
man,
love how she was like, yeah, I don't trust you. I'm having you followed, but
Yeah.
also pulled on your pants
Yes.
yeah.
because
Turn
I
off the
need a bone
lights.
in.
Well, but even that, the line before that, he says, "Yeah, I wasn't followed. I was careful." And then the next line, is just like, "No, I had you followed. You just didn't see it." You know?
Poor Cyril, he thinks he's in on it, and he's just a
He's
little
got
pawn
he's got his
boy.
little hairs or his little dental floss on the door and
He
those
thinks
little
he's
I
so
spy
mean,
tricks.
cool.
I mean, and going back to the theme, like, you know, the yin and yang of it all, it's like, in some ways, if we really want to think about that, it's like, yeah, what you just said, and you kind of like sparked something in me. It was like, you know, they're using everybody's using Gorman as this like pawns, and so Cyril's a
Yeah.
pawn, and so it's like, is Cyril basically to Gorman what you know, or it's like, I don't know, maybe that's thinking too
No,
much into
no,
it, but
you're on the right track. That because of the yin and the yang, like Cyril thinks that he's knows so much about what's going on Gorman, whereas Cassian doesn't even know so much about what's going on Gorman, but he just instinctually knows there's a Empire plant. You guys are being fooled. You guys suck at this. Let me give you some advice. That's another yin and yang.
oh,
Yeah.
and you know, that brings up a good point, because in the meeting, you know, Deidre's whole plan was to find a front that would basically do what they wanted them to do, so they
Yeah.
could basically crack down on the Empire. And then Cassian even says that when he arrives on the ship, he sees that is what is going to happen. He foresees what's going to happen. He goes, yes. And then, because Luthen's like, well, that's fine. He's like, yeah, they can attack and they do it, and the Empire cracks down. Cool. But then but Cassian's like, no, the Empire will crack down. And
Yeah.
he knows it's gonna play right into the Empire's hand. So you're right about that too. That's a great point. And it's like, so that actually shows that Cassian is, so this might, you know, goes more towards your theory, Andy, of Deidre being Cassian's sister, because they're thinking along the same lines,
Yeah.
right? She's like, hey, this is front.
It's the equal opposite. Yeah, like the you know, here are two people who are firm believers in each of their reality, started from the same place, but are, you know, struggling truths basically.
We don't think
Um
I still don't think she's his sister. I
nah.
still don't think it.
Okay.
I'll admit it
Yeah.
if I'm wrong, but Paul's my witness. I'm saying it right now that
It's
Deidre's
something
not
that I don't think it needs to
Cassian's
be.
sister.
Like, I think I will be fine if it never comes to that. It's also, you know, it's like it's just something that, like, yeah, it'd
There's
be
too many
interesting.
people who are secretly family. It's too
Yeah,
predictable in Star Wars. It can't be that predictable.
I mean, it's the same thing with, like, my, you know, the whole is Luthen an ex-Jedi thing. It's like I kind of can see it, but I also don't necessarily want it. But if it were, I you know, I'd buy it. You
Luthen,
know.
an ex-Jedi. Where did that come up?
Oh, you haven't seen the
I've
yeah?
thought
There's
that too. There's a lot of
the,
theories. I mean, he had the
yeah,
kyber
he has
crystal.
lightsabers in his ship. He has a walking stick that works like a lightsaber.
He gives
Um,
Cassian
Okay,
the
but
kyber
he
crystal.
also has things from Indiana Jones in his shop. I mean,
the
that
theory
means
is that
nothing.
he could be oh, what's the rail, basically the Padawan that Dooku had before Qui-Gon, who was basically stationed deep into the Outer Rim. So the idea is, if he was a Jedi, he comes back to Coruscant after 66. No one knows who he is. Obi-Wan has already purged the rosters, so he can just kind of discover what has happened, and basically decides that he needs to be the anti Palpatine, and do exactly what Palpatine did, hiding in plain sight. You know, engineering
Nah,
this
I don't buy
rebellion.
it. Again, I'll admit it if I'm wrong, but I don't buy it.
Yeah,
I don't think he's an ex-Jedi or Padawan.
it would
Or
also.
maybe a family member. That was the other theory. That was one of the family members was like a
That I can
Jedi,
see.
and then this is
Mhm.
what that was his inciting incident to like join the rebellion. Was that one of
The
his?
guy manages to get artifacts from all over the place that are incredibly rare. Like
I mean, there
nothing
is
that's
that
in
one
his
character. I haven't
collection
read too much
is
about it, but like Doc Afra is
Mhm.
she's basically the Indiana Jones of the Star Wars universe. So she goes around and gets those artifacts. So maybe that's something in play there too. Um,
So coming back
yeah,
to okay, let's come back to Mon Mothma here. So there's a lot of really interesting things. She doesn't get a whole lot of screen time this arc, which is fine because we got a lot of Mon Mothma the last arc. But the things that we do get from her are just kind of very interesting in terms of world building. One, we get this thing with her and Perrin where they're just like, there are so many parties and so many new senators coming on board. Everyone is trying to impress the empire, and they're going to. It's just exhausting. So that's their exhaustion point of keeping track of all the new senators, as basically we're hearing that the Senate is going through this major changeover, and
because it's
that of course,
probably all of the opposition getting forced out, and the
yeah,
new sort of like imperial, the imperial sided or what favorite, you know, this the imperial. What am I trying to say? Like the allies, I don't want to go. I was gonna say like I was gonna say something else, but like yeah, you know, like people more in favor of the empire are being put in place. So that's
yeah,
probably the turnover, right?
well, the logos on their little senator pods have all been changed to the Empire now.
yeah. I like. I watched this and I couldn't help but think of all people Mitt Romney,
Mitt Romney.
right? Because of what this is describing is that it's Mitt Romney saying, "I don't recognize this party, and this is not, you know, my field anymore. So I'm gonna just get out of the way because I can't participate in this." Right. So
Mm.
that's which of course makes room for all of these people that are eager to please. Right.
Maggots.
Yes. What did you think of the so yeah, Mon Mothma again, I keep going back to the sort of the visual shots. Man, there's like just like all those shots, and they were like kind of a montage of her trying to talk to these other senators and
Yeah.
get support, and they're walking down these corridors, and the architecture is so
Doing her lobbying.
crazy. It's so great. It's just like visually, it's just stunning, you know. And
Yeah.
then it's like almost every shot is just beautiful, and but I really enjoyed was them getting her and Krennic in the same room,
Yeah.
right? And just like the whole tension of just that. But then also you had the backdrop of you know, we talked about it earlier, you know, her trying to get the listening device out of the art piece. But what did you guys think of that scene?
I mean, it's I mean, it's gripping. I mean, it's the whole I mean, I love the whole, oh yes, my rebel is your terrorist uh, bit as they, try to basically, I mean, they're talking about these artifacts and like the history of the galaxy. So of course they're referencing all of these events that, no one knows until they're telling them to us for the first time. But just kind of seeing what that worldview is. Also, just like it's still Krennic with swagger here before Tarkin is so he's just cocky as hell.
Oh, and the whole like his whole he truly believes about the whole history is written by the victors.
Yeah,
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And what was he saying that in somebody's language, victory, the word for victory sounds the same as the word for revenge
yeah.
or something? Or
Yeah,
the
and he
I don't
was
remember the exact quote, but
but
yeah.
or the word for
he
the
even
word for history is the same word as revenge or something like that.
he even makes a point. It's like, yeah, you were revolutionary as you know my terrorist, or you know,
Yeah.
he does say that as well. Um, I did. I enjoyed that so much. It was just so
The
good.
verbal
Yeah,
sparring,
the verbal
the two
sparring
of
is
them.
the
Yeah.
diametrically opposed. The two sides of the war being pretty much articulated in not just, you know, the it's like how diametrically opposed they are, right? Because one thinks one way, one thinks the other, and they're just there and just
Well,
sparring at
and
it.
then
And
the
it's
Well,
cutting
like,
back
what
and
was
forth between the juxtaposition of Clea and
yeah.
Lonnie with their hands around this book of poetry of a culture that praises blindness and thinks that those who are blind are the truly blessed,
yeah,
right? Like, and here we have people, Krennic is blinded by his ambition, and I guess in a way Mon Mothma is blinded by her need for justice, right? I don't know, it was just a really neat, like, they're sparring, and meanwhile Clea's just doing this beautiful dance on
Well,
this.
also so interesting to see where Perrin and Skulden, they don't have a lot of lines, but you see some visual
Their look.
cues and also
Yeah.
where they align, right? Because ultimately, like, they don't say much, but notice it's noticeable th who they are standing next to at by the end of the scene,
yeah,
right?
Oh, the look that Mrs. Skulden gives Skulden when Mon Mothma says something, and she's just like,
yeah, yeah.
like, we're now tied to this
Yeah.
woman by marriage.
Well, but the thing is, I think they both end up. I mean, it's clear they can't be vocal about it, but they are on Mothma's side, which is
Well, isn't he basically Space Tony Soprano?
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. He's
yeah.
basically a mobster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
so
his where his uh loyalties lie is always kind of up in the air when you have somebody like that who's kind of ethically ambiguous, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was taking some cues that it was kind of showing both Perrin and Skulden were kind of taking Mothma's side. Just they can't be vocal about it. I don't know. There's something
I have
about
a
the way
question.
they staged it.
Before we leave Mon Mothma, did
Yeah.
anybody else on the first, since we all had to watch it twice because we were a little lost, did anybody else think on the first viewing that they had, for some reason, done AI on Bail Organa? And it wasn't until the second viewing that I
Oh,
realized that it was Benjamin Bratt instead of Jimmy Smith.
no,
Like I totally, I was like, why are they using AI on Bail Organa? Like I didn't, like my brain did not compute at first that it was.
no, I clocked it right away. You know, I was like, oh, they recast him with Benjamin Bratt, and then my second thought was like, well, if they're gonna recast it with anybody, Benjamin Bratt's like a perfect choice for that,
what is
right?
Benjamin Bratt
People always
from?
get the,
He's Law and Order.
oh,
Oh, huh.
He was
he played what's his name, the musician, um the
yeah,
famous
La Bamba.
La
He
Bamba.
was in La Bamba, but like, I
Wait, he was in La Bamba?
think it's
I
like
thought he played
one
La
of the.
Bamba.
No, he didn't play La Bamba, but I think he was like one of the brothers or one of the. Yeah,
Nut. Who played La Bamba?
Richie. Wait, okay.
Wait, Richie Valens, you mean?
Let's look it up.
He was
Uh,
Well, no,
also in Longmire. Like,
it's
I mean,
no,
he's
no,
been in
it's
Miss
the
Congeniality.
Filipino,
he's a Filipino guy.
the
Miss
secret Filipino.
Congeniality.
Yeah, Lou
Yeah,
Diamond Phillips
but
was
he
Lou Diamond
Richie
Phillips.
Valens.
Yeah.
he played a Native American in Longmire, though.
Let's look him up. Let's see what I know. I've known him. I remember first seeing him in Law and Order a long time ago, and then he was also in one of the Tom Clancy movies, Clear and Present Danger.
He was married to Julia Roberts for like a hot minute.
Oh, really? Wow.
Wow.
Mhm.
Um, looking at some of the, but yeah, I was just like, yeah, this is perfect. Like like if you're gonna recast it.
Oh,
like,
it was
that's
Lou
a right
Diamond
there.
Phillips that was
No,
La
yeah,
Bamba.
Lou Diamond
Yeah.
Phillips is La Bamba. Yeah. That's what I was saying. Yeah,
Oh my God, I feel terrible now.
the part Filipino playing a Mexican.
Um,
Man,
Well,
he
you
is
have a
one.
Filipino playing Native American, so
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. He also played a Native
He was
American.
amazing
Yeah.
in Longmire. So
Yeah. That's cool.
wait, I think he was in Longmire. Maybe it was Lou Diamond Phillips that was in Longmire.
Okay.
Hold on, now I gotta look that up. I think it was Lou Diamond
Uh,
Phillips.
um,
Lou Diamond Phillips and Benjamin Bratt are just the same person in my head, apparently.
let's see here. Okay.
I guess yeah. It's funny because some people are complaining about it online. I'm just like, it is
Oh,
what it
bitch, it was Lou
is.
Diamond Phillips in
He's on
Longmire.
Dexter, you know.
Damn it.
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
He's shooting Dexter. I mean, I would have liked to have had him, but you know, it's fine. I'll live. Okay, let's see here. Who should we move on to next? Let's talk a little bit more about Cyril and Deidre. Well, actually, okay, you know, yeah, let's talk about. I mean, Cyril with the Gorman front, and I guess ultimately the Gorman front with Vel and Cinta. So yeah, the space French here. Um, it is so interesting that they're like it is absolutely the French resistance, right? And that comes across in the design language. You know, I mean, the first time that we
Kept
see
wanting to be like, do you hear
Cassian.
the Gormans sing, singing songs of angry Gormans?
Oh wait, okay, right country, wrong revolution.
I know, it was World War II. I
yeah.
know. But when they were flying their flags in front of the monument, I kept wanting to be like, do you hear the Gormans sing? I don't know.
Yeah, speaking space French, they actually had cast all these French actors and used
But
you know,
it's not the French language.
It's
not the French
It's a
language.
new
Based
one.
on French.
They're using
but
French
with German-
phonetics, grammar, and
Right. Germanic, some Swiss in there. They did come up with a whole new language.
which was funny because I was like reading people's comments, and there are apparently like people who are French or French Canadians who were like getting confused because they can hear all that and they're going, I'm listening for French, but it's gibberish. So they were just getting like really
Yeah.
weirded out by
I thought they were speaking German at first.
Oh, yeah?
There was some
There's
guttural.
like a-
there was some
yeah.
gutturalness to it.
There's like a mixture of that. It really was. Yeah.
Mhm.
And in some ways, it almost sounded, some parts sounded like kind of Dutch as well.
Mm.
Because it did give
Yeah.
that sort of like Dutch resistance vibes to it as well. But it's like, I think it was meant to just, display, European resistance during World War
Yeah,
II.
but they all had like berets
They
and
had
things like
berets.
that.
This
and,
fashion-
like,
Even the fashion was kind
yeah.
of looks, you know, a little 40s ish with the long coats
Yeah.
and the, you know, and hey, you know, I mean, Cassian looks good. He cleans up well.
Woo!
I'm sorry.
Oh, he even
Variant
told
Sky.
Vix, he was like, I was so
Yeah.
he was like, I was so pretty.
Yeah.
Variant Sky. It was
Yes.
Variant Sky.
I also
Not Cassian.
found it really interesting. So you know, first he lands, he goes to the cafe, you know, to get an espresso. I mean, whatever, a space espresso, right? But he has the barista there, who basically tells him the story of the Tarkin
No, that was
massacre.
the valet. That was
The
the
valet?
valet.
Okay.
The bellhop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
bellhop.
Mhm.
But this was an interesting thing too. Just like, you know, this is always kind of one of my little things is that yes, I understand the whole mantra of show don't tell, but sometimes you can tell as long as you show how someone felt about it, right? And that added these stakes to this of hearing this bellhop saying, "Yeah, like my family died here," and
My
it
dad
basically
died saving me.
yeah,
literally did.
which you know kind of delivers the backstory quickly. It you know kind of gives Cassian a sense of the culture and of you know these are all you know I mean kind of shopkeepers and kind of you know I mean these are not people cut out for a fight. It's a great little just kind of a little bit of texture there.
It's
And-
like
but-
working right next to or in One World Trade Center,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And your
Much
view
so.
is the ponds every day.
right. And building an armory next to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you
Which
don't know
is-
it's an armory for sure.
Well, just
Well, you know,
a,
it's
just
the mystery
but
building.
just a symbol of the empire that casts a shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know,
Looming over it.
looming over. You know, another reminder of like the massacre that
It's
happened
like
there.
it's like
And
Osama bin Laden building a mansion right next to it,
yeah.
Sure.
right next to the World Trade Center, right? Something like that.
But not even just that, but like being the dominant power.
Yeah.
Right. Imagine if like you know they were the dominant power, and
Yeah.
you know, so I thought that was really great. That, you know, really quickly, that was one of the I'm doing a rewatch of The Bureau, and it's a French spy series, and that actor is in it, and so I clocked him right away. He's like really good.
Which actor?
The bellhop. The bellhop.
Oh,
really?
Yeah, he plays.
He put a lot into a very small role.
He's
I was
really
really
great.
impressed with
Yeah,
him.
he's really great.
Make the most.
in
You're a day player.
yeah.
Make the most of your scene.
And by the way, the main character of that series was in Skeleton Crew. He was
really?
the dad of the resistance of the fighting.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he was the dad. So
The teenage girl badass.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So obviously they're big fans of that series too, because they there's twice now that two of the actors have popped up in Star Wars. But yeah, small aside. But when they and then later on I found that they hired all these French actors. I'm like, okay, that makes sense, because like he's one of these, like, you know, so.
I also really enjoyed kind of seeing like their underground meetings, right? I mean, and just kind of watching the unrest, and of course you can just kind of see, you know, they're angry, but they don't really know what to do with this. It's interestingly, yeah. I don't mean it's the you do have the kind of like, these are people who have a simple life. Are they cut
They're
out for this?
babies. They're
Yeah.
baby rebels.
Okay, and then referencing that Tony Gilroy interview too that I listened to, he said he did a lot of like research on just like rebellions in general throughout the history, and so this is I'm sure exactly what happens to all rebellions. It has to start somewhere, and some of these people are just regular people, you know, and they're not trained in the military. They're not, you know, it's just like, oh.
But it also has such an interesting point where ultimately Cassian says, I don't think you should do this. You guys are not cut out. You're going to get people killed. And he's like, okay, but that's easy for you to say, because yeah, I mean, or it's that Cassian saying, if you're planning to do this operation and still stay on the planet, then, you know, you're screwed. There's no ways you can do this. And it's like, well, either we sit here and let ourselves get steamrolled, or we do this, like
or we die trying.
And he was
there's no good answer there, right?
And he has that part, like he starts walking away, he stops, walks back, and he says, hey, you know what, you're not a revolutionary, you don't impress me, and tell your boss you didn't impress me, because you're really not a revolutionary. And and so I think that was really telling too, because yeah, it's like different stakes for everyone. And then it goes back to the line, was it Saw who said it, where he said like, we're all fighting our own. No, it was Dr. Gorst.
Yeah,
he's like, we're all fighting our own rebellion.
Our own rebellion.
We're all fighting our own rebellion. So it's like, it goes this like overall theme of the whole series of like, everyone's fighting in the rebellion, but they're like
their
different ways of doing it, because they come from a different place. Right. Yeah, that's so well done, man. I just cannot get over how well done this stuff is, how great the writing is, how the production, the direction, the visuals.
It's beautifully shot. I mean, there is so much story in frame, and design too. It's like,
and of course we lose Senta. We can't not talk about, because Sam brought a blaster, which he was not supposed to bring.
Which, of course, you know, as soon as she had the scene with Vel and was like,
I looked
was
at
like,
Ian and said, she's
I
gonna
had a
die. And he was
mistake,
like,
you know, like, oh God, she's getting what she wants. She's gonna die now. God damn it.
That's true, right?
it's
In
like, we know
TV.
Bix is gonna die before the end because otherwise
But
Cassian
it's
wouldn't be like, I've
but it-
given everything.
But it's also interesting too, right? Because ultimately, just like with Brasso, Cinta's death is kind of an empty death. It didn't need to happen, and it
could have
wasn't
been
like
prevented.
yeah, and it wasn't like a
The
heroic
speech
death.
that Belle gives to
Yeah.
Sam,
Oh yeah, when
that was
oh
like,
God,
and like, you're going to think about this every single day for the rest of your life, and you're going to be trying to make amends for this every single day. And he's completely going to overcompensate
I-
and end up dead.
She,
I,
in
I,
some
I love
ways,
her line.
she's saying that to her.
She was everything you What did she say?
You're not.
Everything. No. She said everything you aspired to, or something. It was something to
Because he
that
basically
effect.
said like she's a hero and you
Yeah.
thought you're a hero, but no.
Everything you dreamed of.
Yeah. He wanted to be a hero and no,
Yeah.
she was a hero, right?
Yeah.
And so but yeah, now you point that out, Tracy, I also think that she's not just giving that speech to that guy. She's giving that speech to
She's giving it to
herself.
herself.
Right?
Absolutely.
But she's like, every day I'm going to be thinking about this. She's the one that asked her to come on the mission.
Yeah.
Right? She's the one that like, this is my conditions for doing this is that Cinta comes. So like, she's the one, so she's going to think about that every day. She's also, you know, everything she said could be applied to her. So she's not just saying it to that guy. She's saying it to herself too.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't see any of the rest of them doing bomb planting parkour. So
No, that was another thing. I was like, well, at least she went out and she had a
Yeah.
really badass move.
she got one last cool thing.
Yeah, but yeah, and going back to this, like, yeah, it's such a
and with a
it's,
cute new haircut.
I know.
it's such a TV
That's
trope,
okay.
though, right? That like that they have this like really heartwarming moment. Or like they have this like
I tell you what,
speech
man.
about like they have this speech about like, oh yeah, and it's just like this really great thing, and then like, oh, they're gonna die. You know,
Well,
it's
you know,
like-
I mean, I gotta say, when Bix and Cassian were all ponfaring, I'm like, oh God, Bix's days are numbered. Fuck.
I also love that. I also love that Belle specifically warned about random people wandering in. And the old guy who was creating such a fuss at the little rally that they
Yeah.
had
Mhm.
did walk in, and it resulted in Cinta's death. But he's the one who says, I'll carry her body.
Yeah,
Like, he
'cause he's on their side,
realizes
you know,
Yeah.
he's
her loss.
Yeah, he
But,
realized,
but,
I think
but
he
it's like
realized fucked
he
up, too.
recognizes. Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I'm gonna try to make amends by doing this. So, yeah, I just loved how they do that, and then, the seeds are being laid for Gorman. You know, and it's interesting going back to the Gorman massacre, and then I think we all thought this, right? That the Gorman massacre was what Tarkin had done, right?
It is.
Well, but that's
they
what I'm
retconned
saying.
it.
That's what I wanted to ask. So, do you think it was retconned or was it?
So
Yeah.
yeah, because this is the first time they put a date on Tarkin, on the Tarkin event.
Okay.
They're saying that it happened years before this, or like a year. So it was, you know, but we know that the Gorman massacre happens basically to BBY, because that's what they established in Rebels.
Oh, they're calling this the Tarkin massacre as opposed to the Gorman massacre.
And that's the distinction. That's the tricky little retcon. So ultimately they have two Gorman massacres now, which is fine.
And I think it's going to be worse. Is my
Oh,
point.
yeah.
I think it's going to be
Oh,
worse.
yeah.
Is my point, right?
It's going to be somewhere between the Tarkin massacre and Alderaan being
yeah,
blown
like
up.
it's going to be like a planetary level disaster, I believe.
Yeah.
Right. I think.
Or they blow up the whole capital, right? Like, they blow up the capital, but not
I
necessarily
mean,
the whole
even if they
planet.
just gun down,
Because they still need the
protesters, it's like,
calcite
yeah.
from the planet.
Or it could, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I think it's going to be planetary because they allude to it in the meeting. they
Yeah.
say that like the dangers of extracting it as fast as they need it would have some very, very dire circumstances.
Yeah.
You know,
But they just destroy the population and not the planet.
true, true.
Like what they did with Cassian Andor's home planet, right? Like they just completely decimated until they can't support human life.
Yeah.
It's
Except for children.
7:14, so we're gonna have to wrap up soon. One other little thing that I just found really fascinating as just kind of a character arc for this, right? Is that we start off with Bix and Cassian and just how living undercover is just like the rebellion is kind of chipping away at their sanity, right? Like watching Cassian, just being himself, at the grocery store with the space grocery store, and he's freaking out constantly, right? But then Cassian, once he puts on his spy gear and he's got the suave, you know, he combs his hair and he's all chill and he's, Mr. Spy. So that is an interesting contrast too, right?
Yeah.
Of that when he is in operation mode, he's smooth as silk.
He also doesn't have Bix with him when he's doing that. I think he's
Fair.
more
Yeah.
nervous around Bix and
Yeah.
keeping her protected.
Yeah.
She has that line. She grabs him and she says, "I can't sleep. You can't shop." Like,
Yeah.
We're like a mess. Like,
Yeah.
let's the mission is dinner.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
that's how she gets him to focus. It's like the mission is dinner, and I'm like, I thought that was great. But
Yeah.
going back to that, it's like at the heart of that relationship is like, okay, yeah, they're obviously in love with each other. He's protecting her, and in some ways, I think it's going to be tragic because there's that next step that Luthen wants Cassian to go to, right?
Right.
And in Luthen's eyes, Bix is holding him back from doing that. And in Cassian's own actions, Bix is holding him back from going to that next level.
But she's also why he's doing it in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Mhm.
I mean, and it's also it'll be interesting to see kind of where they go. I mean, it's like we're not going to see them again for another year later now, right?
Yeah.
So like this will play out, but of course, how does the death of Cinta change the operation, right? Because in theory, this is ultimately Luthen realizing he has to change how he's doing this because he's like the no, trust no one modus operandi is not working. It's driving them all nuts.
And
Last
racking up
arc,
losses.
he knows he's building this for Mon Mothma, not for them, because none of them have a clean slate the way Mothma does, right? So, is Vel even functional, or is she kind of going to end up going the kind of the way of Saw?
I think
With
she's
a much more
gonna go.
nihilistic approach.
She's gonna start giving zero fucks.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be Saw.
And
Yeah.
then that's going to be the contrast to if Bix and Cassian are like this unit, right? It gives us some stakes. We've got 2 more arcs left, right? So
Yep.
chances are this tomorrow night is probably the Gorman Massacre. Because that'll
I'm
be
pretty sure it is, right? Because the other
'cause-
arc is going to be right up into leading, according to them, the last episode leads right into Rogue One.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can't see it. I could see it happening there, and then the aftermath of it in the final arc. And the other thing, I one last thing I wanted to say is like, where's B2 emo?
I know
He's still on the farm planet, hanging
still
out with the
chasing
yak.
the
He's
watering droid.
He's still waiting for Cassian to arrive. He's still waiting for Cassian to come back.
Because B2 emo is a good boy.
One really quick, another thing I thought to
Robo
myself
puppy.
was like, what if they somehow like B2 emo's like chips to his mind gets melded with K2 somehow, right? Like,
See, that has
that-
always had me worried too, that ultimately it's gonna be like B2 emo gets destroyed and they save his chip, and
Yeah.
that's how they reprogram. Yeah.
I've been rewatching season 1, and when Marva says I'm dying, and B2 Emo goes, "Oh."
So emotive, man. Such an emotive droid. So great.
Any other hopes, requests, predictions for tomorrow night?
I think we're already 20 minutes over.
I mean, we are, but just to wrap up.
I'm looking forward to it. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Can't wait for it.
All right. So we will be back next week. We're going to be talking about the arc. So watch it tomorrow. Start commenting to us. Tell us what you want us to zero in on. And thank you for following the Geekish Network here on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. Subscribe to the channel. We will be releasing the next one next Monday. Check out the schedule for all the other great shows throughout the week. Thanks on the flight deck to Rodney. And scroll. Please check out all of our content on podsquadron.com. Like and subscribe. Follow us on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. For podcast subscriptions, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app. I am the Chinese Pirate at ChinesePirate_ at all platforms.
I'm Tracy, the hot nerd girl, and all I have to say is Niyamo.
And I'm Rodney, and yeah, I can't wait to watch. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I can't wait to watch the Gorman Massacre.
All wings return to base, course slated and prepared to make the jump to light speed on my mark. And remember, the truths we cling to depend on our own point of view. Only the Sith deal in absolutes. Good night.
Niyamo.
You know, did I tell you guys I had the song stuck in my